it's so mad to think that we have to, as Europeans, put the United States in the same category as Russia for
Hmm.
the next 4 years. To be thinking like that, to be like, the United States is not our ally, it's not our friend. It is a rogue state, possibly soon a failed state, and not the place where Cheers is from.
Hello and welcome to Eric McElroy's American Exchange with me, Eric McElroy. This is the podcast where I dial back across the pond to find out what is happening in my home country. I've only been gone for 26 years, so, it's good to touch base every now and then. But this week, we're doing a little bit of a twist on things. We're speaking to my good friend, Grania Maguire. Grania is a brilliant comedian. She's a writer on many of the late night topical shows that are here in the UK and one of the hosts of the podcast, The Way They Were, which is absolutely brilliant and luckily nothing to do with politics whatsoever. So if you're looking for something to cleanse after you listen to us, you could listen to her on that wonderful, wonderful podcast. I had Grania on the podcast because I've known her a long time. She does writing in topical comedy, so we talk a little bit about that with the current administration. But she's also a huge fan of the US and has been for a long time. She likes our work generally, so it's interesting to get her perspective as somebody who's keenly focused as an outsider on American politics, who has family there, she's visited a number of times, and how what's happening in the US with Trump, with this administration, is impacting her. She's somebody who's on Team America, but Team America isn't making it very easy. So it was lovely to catch up with her. She's always brilliant to talk to. Please enjoy Grania Maguire. Oh, and if you're watching this on YouTube, now's a good time to subscribe to the channel. Check out other videos I'm doing. I've got I got little shorts popping up every now and then. I've got more comedy clips I'm releasing, as well, of course, podcasts are there. All of the podcasts and the recent series are there. And we're also starting to put up some of our historical ones as well. So thank you very much for listening, watching, and thank you for Grania Maguire. Well, normally with the podcast, I am dialing across the pond to talk to an American about what's happening in the United States in the political situation. But today, we're doing none of that. As I talk, I'm not dialing across the pond. Somebody who's on the pond with me here in the United Kingdom, and somebody who's not even an American. She's Irish, which is kind of American, the same
Yeah.
thing. We're all Irish in America. So it's lovely to chat to you, Grania,
Hi, Eric.
because, hello, over all of the years I've known you, which I think is about, I think we've known each other for about 300 years.
Yeah.
Um,
We were there.
you,
Remember when Lincoln, gave that
Lincoln,
speech? We were there
we were there, and it was
gossiping.
controversial at the time. A lot of people, I know, the Fox News Telegram at the time wasn't keen on his speech. But all the years that I've known you, you have more than other people that I meet outside of the US been pestering me about America. You
Hmm.
like America, don't you?
I have a very complicated relationship with Americana, let's just say. We're going through quite a rocky period, but I've always had a very soft place in my heart. I think a lot of people do. But
Hmm.
I do for like American culture, American a real interest in American history, American way of life. Yeah, I've always found it fascinating.
Is that, I mean, do you have, because I mean, obviously there's so many connections between Ireland and the
Mhm.
US, but have you had family? Do you have family there?
Okay, well, so growing up, well, first of all, just start off, like when I was little, I was I wouldn't say even obsessed. Like I genuinely thought I was one of the March sisters. Like I was so obsessed with Little Women, I just read it constantly. It wasn't like, oh, I read that book once, I really liked it. I think it was like the one book that I just read nonstop. So when I was little, my imagination just was American. Like all the when I would sort of like picture, like it was like a second part of my brain was America, the white picket fences, the old sort of
Hmm.
wooden New England buildings, the German family down the road that we're all worried about, um, Thanksgiving, all that stuff. It was just, the weird, like Mr. Knickerbocker down the road. So it was just like I always sort of grew up like my imagination was American, like Sesame Street, all that sort of stuff. And then my uncle and my auntie, both emigrated illegally to America in the 90s.
Nice way to out them now with the most
Listen,
anti-immigrant administration ever.
they're both Trump voters, so
Okay.
they can handle it. But they both moved to America in the no, in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. So how they were doing in America when they'd sometimes come back and they would have like, I remember one time my auntie brought me back a Gap cardigan. And it just
Ooh.
seemed like so glamorous. It was like somebody bringing something from the telly and I'd given it to you. It just felt so glamorous. And I remember one time my uncle said soda instead of lemonade. And we were like, oh, it was just, our brains were blown. So yeah, it just felt like for me, I think America was like living in the television.
Hmm.
And, it was this like Wizard of Oz place where the eggs were slightly different color. I remember we were obsessed that they had paper bags in supermarkets instead of plastic bags. That was a big thing. We're like, they have paper bags. You go to America and you do your shopping in a paper bag. And the kids on the television, could always like talk on the phone for as long as they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you'd have like a yearbook
Yeah.
and you'd be a cheerleader. And it was just, yeah, a real sort of fantasy place.
Well, I'm going to blow your mind right now because the first job I ever had was as a bag boy at Safeway grocery store, and my job was to be at the end of the checkout, and I would say paper or plastic, and then I would bag your groceries and I would walk you to your car.
Oh, did you have like a cute little bow tie uniform?
I had a little uniform with a little of a waistcoat, and I don't know if I still have my name tag, but I do. I do still
That is
have
too
all
cute.
of my high school yearbooks. I
Stop
This is the
it.
one. This is from 1989. The cover of it is Our Time,
Oh,
and I've
are
got
you from
all
a Ron
these.
Howard film? Like, how is this
You
real?
can see here. That's our class photo. That's all of us, and it's all 80s hairstyles. Those of you watching this on YouTube can see the
Oh
photo
my
there. I have
God,
all of these.
Eric.
I even
And
have some
under,
from
wait, wait, wait,
junior
wait.
high.
Under do you have like a little thing like most likely to, or did you have to give like a little comment underneath your
Um,
picture?
Well, I've done a whole video on reading from my yearbook
Okay.
because it's so sad. That's not my senior year one. There's a statement in my senior year where you kind of talked about what you wanted for the world, and mine is just so gooby. I mean, I was a nerd. I mean, there's no question about that. If anybody is wondering, but yeah, but I've got them all,
But are you
and
impressed that I knew that? See, that's how much I know about the minutiae of American culture. I'm like, well, actually, if it's your yearbook, there should be a picture of you, and underneath
there's
a quote.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's definitely some quotes there. There's definitely some quotes there. It's all true. It was basically just like Stranger Things back then. So
Oh
when my
my
kids
God.
watch that now and they're because the thematic colors and the mall and all of that and then this underworld of hatred and racism, which I think is what's represented by Stranger Things. It's all
Yeah.
real. It's all true. So when did you get to go to America for the first time?
So I went to America for the first time I went to New York
Mm,
in August, the summer of 2001.
okay. 2001. 2001. Whatever
No,
happened
no,
in
no.
New
I'm like,
York in
yeah, yeah,
2001?
2001.
So, were you gone by September? Do you have an alibi?
I went up the morning of it. My birthday's the 15th, and I went up the Twin
Wow,
Towers that morning because
that's
I got sort of
amazing.
lost and I had this idea that I would go outside Tiffany's and like get a coffee and a croissant, but then I got lost. So I got outside the Twin Towers and I thought, oh, okay, fine. I might as well, I'll just go up these. Might as well just
Hmm.
go up like, and New York blew me away when I saw the Statue of Liberty for the first time. I cried.
Yeah.
I cried like I was some like little mid-century peasant, finally getting to the free land. Like I found it so emotional.
Hmm.
I really, really loved it. And yeah, I thought it was great. And that was sort of always in the back of my head. And I think anybody who works in the arts in Ireland or the UK, for so long, and maybe even still now, America is like, oh, well, if you really become successful, you move to the US. Or if you
Mm.
want to be successful, that's sort of seen as the real pinnacle. So at the back of my head, I was always like, and eventually I'll move to New York. And, eventually this is all leading to, if things go well, I'm heading west. And what's fascinating is that, and I've been there a few times since,
Mm.
is that like, because our culture here, is so American, centered, and we know so much about, the little details of American culture.
Yeah.
And then when you're actually there as an outsider, I remember I kind of almost felt a little bit creepy because I remember
Mm.
so well, I was in an Irish American pub. And I was just so excited because it felt like I was in an immersive TV experience. I was like, I'm in an Irish American pub in Ireland, in America. Oh my God. And I was like, I know all these stuff. I know all these things. And the waitress was coming over to me and I was like, I wonder how she got an opinion on Susan Collins from Maine because she always says she's going to stand up to Trump, but then she always just flakes. And I was like, I wonder could I put that into conversation? And then she could be like, oh, you know a lot about American culture. And I'd be like, oh, well, I'm just very worried about what's going to happen with the House at the midterms, will the Democrats gain back control or will they lose Georgia? And I really wanted to like impress her. And then I felt like really creepy. Like, do I need to hide how much I know about our country? Is that going to make her like scared? And then she came over and she said to me, oh, where are you guys from? And I said, bear in mind, this was an Irish American bar. I said, I'm from Ireland. And then she said, oh, cool. Sorry, I don't really know anything about England. And I was
Oh.
like, what? And I think that sums up America's relationship with the rest of the world. So I'm like, I have spent my whole life watching you, and you literally can't find me on a map.
Wait, so you're saying Ireland isn't in England? I didn't. Oh man, I gotta change it. No, I mean, yeah, that is this, and that's in New. That was that in New York,
It was in New England.
New England. Okay, so you were outside of New York a little bit, because New York, hopefully, you would think would be a little bit better. But that, yeah,
Yeah.
that does. I mean, the America is so all-consuming when you're there, and I know people I've listened to over the years. Oh, Americans don't have any passports. The thing is, up until September 11th, you didn't need a passport to go to Canada or Mexico. So you had an entire continent that you could
Mm,
travel to passport free, and it also helped if you were white. But but you could go, which is thousands and thousands of miles. You could go from weather that's the same as the Mediterranean to weather that's the same as the Alps, all of this vast territory. And so you didn't need a passport. But also, you just don't know. Even when you're in this sort of cosplay Irish pub,
mm-mm.
you know, where is Ireland anyway? It probably had never
Mm.
occurred to her to think about it that it was an actual place. She probably
Yeah.
thought it was from Narnia or something.
Yeah.
Which, having been to Ireland, it's a lot like Narnia.
I wish there's a lot of strong female leaders in Narnia that we sadly don't have.
I mean, yeah, I've seen some parts of it that look like it's in that winter period of
Mm.
before Aslan wakes up. But that was just trying to visit. We visited the village where my wife's family came from in Northern Ireland. I can't remember the name of
Oh.
the little town, but it was rough.
Oh.
But it was nice to go back and see the origins. Um, do you think? And so, what about your interest in American politics? Because it's not just that you're interested in America. Do you think that's because, as a writer, as a topical writer, because you've worked on loads and loads,
Mhm.
countless numbers of
Yeah.
television shows, doing topical writing, which of course American news breaks through quite a bit to the rest of the world. Is that where your interest in American politics came from, or was it before that?
I think American politics is so growing up in Ireland, um, Irish politics is like you've got two basically centre right parties, and there's not really that many like ideological battles. It's
Mm,
it feels like just very boring. And the sort of especially in the 90s, every now and then there was a tribunal about something or other, and then nothing ever was really sorted out. And then as well, I think British politics I mean, I think Irish politics is more boring, but British politics is it feels quite sort of like, like mealy mouth and, quite tedious, but like technical little policy difficult, and you know, and every now and something exciting like Brexit happens, but um, it seems much more sort of policy rather than characters. I know that's
Mm.
changing. It's like, you know, you get your
That
Johnson
has
or your
changed, yeah.
Farage, but then you watch American politics and it feels like the production is bigger and the characters are bigger, and it always feels like the stakes are so much higher.
Mm.
And it's about these big moral issues, and it always, you know, every election it's like, this is when, you know, you're voting for democracy, and I know we've said it before, but this is the most important election of your life. And then you've got people like Oprah Winfrey getting involved, and it just felt so much more bigger, like a Marvel universe, you know, with all
Mm.
these like wacky characters and batshit stuff. So you can't help be, I just find it so fascinating. And I think as well, because like the best, so much really, really great comedy that comes out of America, you know, America, you know, it's about politics. So then you kind of, you want to get the references and you want to kind of know who they're talking about. And it feels like this gang, and you want to be in that gang. And then you
Mm.
end up sort of reading more about it because, you know, you want the context and to know who everybody is. So that kind of like drags you in, I think.
Yeah, you're right. I think the first time I voted in the UK legally, I'm here legally, by the way, unlike your uncle and auntie. When we got the ballot papers, I think it was for the European parliamentary elections, but also for the mayoral elections here, or for the council in London, that you just vote for the party and not the person.
Yes,
That
yeah.
blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like how, because it's about the personality. Like I might, like, I
Mm,
might normally be a Democratic voter, but if there's a Republican and I like him and I relate to him,
yeah.
that's who you're going to vote for, because it's all driven by the person first.
Yeah.
I think that has changed in America as well, because now it is very much, I mean, the statistics have shown that people would split their tickets. They'd vote, for their Democratic senator who they really liked, and then they'd vote for a Republican governor, because they were voting for the person who they trusted to
Mhm,
implement, what was best for them. But now it's pretty much straight down the line. You've got to vote for Trump, got to vote for Republicans, and then
mhm,
Democrats. I mean, I'm not voting for any Republicans until the Republican Party stops being a cult. But
mhm,
I'm sure they feel the same way about me. That they're
mhm,
they're wrong, of course, but but I think it's moved that way a little bit more in America, even though we still have the gigantic personalities, and obviously there's
mhm.
no bigger personality ever than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He makes sure of that. I'm going to ask you the question that I hate getting as a comedian, and especially for you as a comedy writer. Um, isn't Trump winning again such a gift to what you do?
No, it's awful. It's really bad. It's really, really, really bad. I can't, I just, it's it's really bad because we've been through all of this before, and we
Mm,
thought by writing the right jokes and getting the right sort of righteous indignation and the round of applause that it somehow made any difference. And I think there's nothing more damning than the power of comedy than Trump's re-election. Like it means nothing. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't change anything. So I think just from that point alone, like actually make undermining the whole like concept of satire and like making a difference, I just think it's so depressing. And I think the tone is different this time because I think the first term you could sort of see it through the lens of, well, it was a protest vote and he didn't win the popular vote. And, you
mm,
know, he's very unpopular and this is an aberration and you delude yourself this way. But now this feels so different. He is so popular. He won the popular vote. They knew what they were doing when they voted for him. So it just feels different. And I think people are just sick. It's not fun anymore. It's not fun anymore. I think people just are not engaging. People aren't. Remember the first time people were like reading books about him, listening to podcasts. People
mm.
are cooked. They don't want to hear about him anymore.
Except for
So
on this podcast.
no, but I mean, I think a lot of people. This is like for
Tuned
a
out.
podcast
Yeah.
about America, but I mean, people who just turn on the news or
Mm.
watch like a comedy show what is the fresh take on Trump?
Yeah. It's, I mean, I think the thing that where the satire still has a point is that it still does undermine some of his legitimacy a bit. And the fact that he also desperately wants the validation of these people. His whole thing is about validation. So he is riding high because he did do better in the polls, but he didn't actually win the majority. That's the
Oh,
one
did
of
he
those little
not?
things. He won the plurality of the vote.
Hmm.
50.1% of the voters voted for someone else. So he still never cracked 50% of the electorate.
Hmm.
I know that's a tiny little whisker, but it
Hmm.
matters and it bugs him. And I think the fact that he cares about that shows how thin-skinned and childish and ridiculous he is as a human being, um, if I can call him that. So I think it's whilst it is screaming into the void, it is interesting watching the topical writers in the topical late night shows that
Hmm.
so far have been unrelenting in their criticism and their mockery of him. You know,
Hmm.
Colbert and Seth Meyers
Hmm.
and Jimmy Kimmel and all of those folks that are still pushing against it when we've
Hmm.
seen the rest of the media and the rest of
Yeah,
the tech bros and the that oligarchy just bow down and bend
yeah,
over.
yeah, that's
So
true.
I don't know how long that can last.
Yeah.
If the but I think that the Trump people have definitely shown a way of eating their own, and I think
Hmm.
that's a matter of time. It doesn't feel like because it doesn't. Well, obviously, because I'm biased and I know you are as well, but it's unsustainable. The level that they're burning through. I mean, just what do you think about the speed of everything that's happened? I mean, it's only been a month. It's only been a month, and it feels like the world is not anything like what it was before this.
But I think is this not how history works? I
Mm,
think it is sustainable. I think he was chaos the first term, and now he's got all the smart, practical people around him who can actually, you know, I mean, I'm not a political expert, but who know the policy, who know how the government works, and they're just dismantling the state and dismantling American democracy. And it just feels like this is just a shift in world order where it's like a coalition
mm,
now between the United States and Russia.
yeah,
And yeah, that we're the world now.
we're all looking to Ireland for the leadership that it finally needs. This is your
Oh,
time.
listen. I don't know.
I
I what I find I just I felt like the morning of the election, I didn't stay up and watch. And I always stay up to watch US elections and I didn't. And then just the next morning I just something really in me snapped and I felt so sad, like so like personally like bereft, like woke up almost like somebody had broken up with me, that really like the
mm,
betrayal and the hopelessness. And then I just something in me snapped. I was like, I'm Irish. I live in the UK. Why am I so emotional? And that's what it was. It was a real heartbreak. I was like, I can't care about this country anymore. I know that's awful. I'm so sorry to all your listeners, but I was like, I cannot care about this country anymore. This country does not care about anybody else but itself. Why am I deluding myself? Like it felt like a real like waking up from a cult. I was like, I
mm.
cannot worry anymore about these people.
And I think I mean that's sad to hear, obviously, because even though I've lived outside the US for 26 years, it still tugs at my heartstrings. And partly because the propaganda I was raised with as a child was very effective in
Mm,
believing in the America that that was never but that parts of it were always there. But the reason why America is was so seductive, and this is one of the things that's tragic about what Trump and the mega movement have done, is that yes, you're an outsider to America as in your current status. But what was wonderful about it was that if you did move there, like your aunt and uncle did,
mm,
that you embraced that, then you would immediately become part of that dream. That it was a welcoming dream. That when you were an immigrant, that you came, you were immediately welcomed in as part of it. And obviously there's some groups that were less welcome at times than others and all of that kind of thing. But overall, that if you went into a bar and you said, I just became an American, you would get a cheers and a drink and a welcome. That was the general gist and flow of the
mm,
attitude. Whereas as an immigrant to the UK, when I tell people that I'm British, they always go, not really. You know, even
Mm-hmm.
even middle
Yeah,
class, liberal, open-minded, alleged people still will never accept me as being British because I still
yeah.
sound like this and I'm not from here. That was the seduction of America, is that you, Grania, could, even at this stage, go there and in an instant you become an American. Trump has changed that. Mega has changed that. And
Mm-hmm.
it was always an undercurrent of it. But, the whole Haitian eating cats and dogs lie. And then,
Mm-hmm.
having the president or the potential president of the United States lie about a vulnerable group of people is so beyond the pale. Um, and yeah, that's tragic to me. I mean, I can feel
Mm-hmm.
that sadness and why you should go. Well, who gives a shit? But the reason we have to give a shit is because it is the biggest kid on the block, and
Yeah.
it and I also see it impacting the politics here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the one thing that Trump is showing and the mega movement is showing is that when you get into power, you use every lever of power you can to put forward your agenda. Nothing incremental. And if we're looking at a political party that's doing things incrementally, look at the current Labor Party in the United
Oh,
Kingdom
yeah. It's
and how
awful.
they're
It's awful.
how they're fucking it right now. And I think
Yeah.
opening the door to the right here taking a bigger foothold than they already have. Um, because they're watching. Both, the right here is watching, and I would imagine the right in other countries is watching as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I
It
don't,
is.
is that,
But
yeah.
it's like when you were talking about like when you're talking about that, once you have the everybody can be an American citizen.
Mm,
Like I think it's because so after a few days after the election, I was like, I said to my husband, I was like, that's it. I was like, we're not watching any more American culture. We're not American. We are not American. And I really was like, because I was thinking about this. What I was like, why do I feel like I'm so um personally betrayed? And I think it's because we our viewpoint is American. Our viewpoint is, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. All the facts about American history and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. In our head, we're like, America's the good guys. We know America so intimately that we can't help. It's like, yeah, but they're the good guys. They're the good guys. And then this election happened. It was like, it's because like this like 99.8% of the TV I watch is American. The films I watch are American. The podcasts I listen to are American. The books I read are American. The websites I go on, all my references, American. So when you were talking about the whole idea of you become an American citizen and how romantic that is, like my heart was swelling even thinking about it because we're so colonized. I think English speaking Europeans and maybe all of the Western world were completely in the American Empire, that it's really, really hard for us to really consider the United States as the bad people,
mm.
even with all the evidence, no offense, that we have of like what is the reality of modern American history. Like it's all there, yet still, when the election happened, we were like, no, this isn't them. Sorry,
I
this
think
isn't them.
I think
So,
what you've described, I'm going to put it in movie terms, is that this is a rom-com, and you are the girl in the rom-com who all this time had the crush on the bad boy,
mm, 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 mm.
and then you think 'cause he's going to be wonderful, and then you go out with him and you realize he's been a jerk all along, and
And
then
he's
I
like,
don't know who.
I was always the jerk. Do you not remember the indigenous people
Uh,
genocide?
yeah, yeah.
So it's weird, but it's really sad. It's really sad. But I think it's a tragedy on so many levels what's happening. It is a real, I'm being glib here because it's so sad and because
Mm,
it's so heartbreaking. Like it genuinely, like I loved visiting America.
yeah.
I love American history. Like I said, I love American culture. Will love a Ken Burns. Cannot, a good, I could rank the founding fathers in like my order that I, respect and love them. Um, and to be like, I can't, I have to move on and that I have this privilege that I can try and put my attention elsewhere. And like to think, I know this is so mad. I'm just even going to say that loud. Like, it's so mad to think that we have to, as Europeans, put the United States in the same category as Russia for
Mm.
the next 4 years. And it's even worse. I'm sorry, but like the Russian people, how much freedom did they have to elect Putin compared to Trump? So in a way, the US is more culpable in a way, and less worthy of our sympathy at the moment. I know they're not right now in the middle of a land war, but it's
Yeah.
it's so mad to be thinking like that, to be like the United States is not our ally, it's not our friend. It is a rogue state, possibly soon a failed state, and not the place where Cheers is from.
Well, it's so basically we've become the complicated musical artist where you love the music, but you know,
Yeah, it really
we have
is.
buckets and buckets of lube in our
Yeah.
in our house. Um, I mean, I guess if someone was listening to this, if a Trump supporter made it this far, which I would imagine maybe isn't likely, but the reason, the tragedy that you're talking about, and I think because I feel a lot the same way, that the things that are tragic is because it is electing a felon, it is supporting an
Mm.
insurrection, it is, taking people like Pete Hegseth, who, is borderline, committed well he's is an admitted drunk essentially, and then his relation, his own mother said that he was a disgrace to women, that this is the ascendancy in America. That's why we
Yeah.
think it's a tragedy. If
Yeah.
anybody was like, what is she talking about, I think we both think that's tragic.
Yeah.
Where I think I have to hope, and this is where we need European friends and allies like yourself, is to still believe in that 50.1%,
Yeah.
that it is dark. I mean, I don't get me wrong. We'll know in the next few weeks, if because there's so many court rulings that have gone against Trump, because a lot of the things like birthright citizenship, taking that away, which is a fundamental right that's been there for 150 plus years. But if Trump starts to ignore the courts, that's
Yeah.
when we will know that we are fucked
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
a while. Um, I
But
have
do
to
you
hope only
think
for a while.
if he starts ignoring courts and if it doesn't affect his popularity, like if it's,
Well, the good thing is apparently people weren't voting for him because they're racist or sexist. It was because of the price of eggs, and the price of eggs have doubled. So, based on the egg metric analysis, he should, his administration should crack. Is that a terrible pun? I'm sorry. I know this. Could I get that on one of your topical shows, do you
yeah,
think? Can I get that in
100%,
there?
I'm
I'm going
stealing
to give
that.
that to you. I want to see that on TV soon. Why aren't I writing for these shows with fucking killer jokes like that? I just made that up like right here, right now. Isn't that amazing? That was bad. Um, I'm going to let you release you into the wild. But first, I want to hear about your podcast, which I know is deeply political.
But just before I go, if
Oh, yes.
to your American listeners, like that's heartbreaking. Like I hope I don't sound like glib or like I'm heartbroken. I'm really heartbroken. It's so sad. Like I really loved the concept of America, and I always I really always defended it. I really did, and it was such a lovely dream. And God, I sound like I've won an Oscar or something. Um, and I it what obviously there was an incredibly dark um sort of like thread through it all of like the reality of how like a lot of people in America were being treated. But there was always just like a hope that it was all sort of arching towards something amazing. So for my own mental health, I'm stepping back from a little bit, but I really am rooting for you. In my heart, I'm just can't wait. I just can't wait for us to get back together again.
We know we're the bad, but we know you'll come back to us. We know you will. Don't worry.
Speaking of
Um,
bad boys and getting back together, or maybe not, I have a podcast on celebrity breakups. So these are
ah,
famous breakups. So you've got your classic like Brad and Jen, but also we did, although they never broke up, we did a whole thing on Abe Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln. We've done, they were a messy couple. We've done Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. We've done Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. We've even done Kermit and Miss Piggy. So
ooh,
all the icons.
all the classic relationships and a lot of those are American relationships as
You
well.
see?
You
There's
can't
no
escape
escaping you
us.
guys.
Can't escape us. Have you done any British couple? You must have done some British ones.
Yeah, we did Charles and Di, obviously.
Yeah.
Liz Hurley and Hugh Grant.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
there's just, yeah, they're just,
There's
it's
plenty.
fascinating. It says so much about like nostalgia, our ideas about what love is like, and just how tricky relationships can be.
And I'm guessing that's available on all podcast
And this is
platforms.
called The Way. What can I'm gonna have to say it again because I always slightly get my own podcast wrong. The Way They Were.
There we go. Okay, so we'll check that out. Thank you, Grania, for coming on. And America, we will try and redeem ourselves just for you. I promise we will try. So thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much to Grania for coming on the podcast. Thank you to Mark, the producer, for putting everything together as always. And yeah, I think it's interesting to talk to somebody who's such a fan of America, has watched America so closely, and how this does have an impact. I think sometimes Americans are like, well, the world just do what it likes and it doesn't matter about us. They don't like us. People do have a fondness for America. People know that America is important. And what happens there makes a difference to millions and millions of people all around the world. So, something to think about that. If you're an American voter, think about maybe what others think. It's one of the reasons why I'm a passionate American expat because I know that we have impact. So it was brilliant to catch up with Grania. I really appreciate her giving her time. Make sure to check out her podcast, The Way They Were, and we will see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye bye.